You want to avoid being rude in English? These are 3 things you need to know. Number 1, do you call your boss, or elders for that matter, by their first name? Is that seen as rude? Answer, no, not at all. In English, one thing to know is that a lot of things are tone dependent. So you will use the same words for various different people groups, and you will just adjust your tone depending on who you're referring to. So for example, when you're talking to your boss, yes, you'll use their first name 9 times out of 10. When you're talking to your friend, you use their first name. Now, when you're talking to your friend, you're like, hey, what up, dude? What's up, John? You're not going to say like that to your boss, right? Hey, John, I have these papers for you. Okay, cool. Leave them on my desk. Easy does it. Easy, simple like that. Different tones adjusted, but still the same. You're still calling them by their first name. It really just depends on the context and who you're talking to. But yes, you would call, in a lot of contexts, you would call your boss by their first name. Now, in super formal environments or professional environments, such as like when you're in an interview for the first time, your first time meeting like your soon-to-be boss, or even just a hiring manager, is not bad to start off by saying like sir and ma'am and whatnot. But for the most part, like they're immediately going to be like, hey, just call me Jeff. Hey, just call me John. Hey, just call me Rebecca. Like no one is going to actually sit there and take you calling them sir. They won't be mad, but it's just not something that's normally done, right? So for the most part, it'll be just straight and simple. They'll tell you to call them by their first names. If you want to approach it safely, you're more than welcome to. But after you're actually in the workplace, most every time you immediately resort to first names. It's just what's done. Context is really important. And to some extent, I'd say depending on your tone, saying sir and ma'am in certain contexts can sound sarcastic, which would come off rude. So you got to be very careful with your tone in English and make sure what you're saying is very is in the proper tone, or it will come off a completely different way, even if you were not intending it that way. Number 2, do you use separate words for elders? Now, once again, I saved my previous point about elders for this one. I'm going to tie it all together. Essentially, no. There is no separate words that you use for elders specifically. Now, when you're talking to someone that is older than you, you're going to use a whole different tone. You're not going to be like, hey, what up, bro? What up, Jeff? Once again, you're not going to do that. You can call them by their first name most times, but a lot of times, I'd say, depending on who they are to you, a lot of times people will say things like, they'll call them like Mr. or Mrs. in their last name, but even then, a lot of the times it's still just first name basis. But it is a major difference in the way that you use it tone-wise. That's just huge. So you'd be, once again, I'm not going to sit up there. I'm going to be like, hey, what up, Jeff? How you doing, man? Like, just no. I'd be like, hey, Jeff, I got this for you. Something like that. Just super simple, chill, polite. There's a polite tonnage to use in this kind of context. And then there's, like, obviously the more friendly, we're just mates type of thing, which is not something that you would use. Going off of that, there are words you would avoid for the most part, and those being, your slang terms such as like dog and bro and man. A lot of the times, people won't use those around elder people for a few reasons. One of which just being that, they don't understand because, especially if they're super old, it's like, it wasn't their culture when they were a child. They don't understand that. They don't know. I mean, they use different words then, so they won't understand it necessarily. And even then, it's nice to just be, I guess, a little bit more formal when talking to them, but at the same time, we don't have really designated words for elders versus, other people. So, super simple, just know you'd use the same thing, just make sure your tone's correct so you can avoid coming off rude. Number 3, is sir and ma'am commonly used in English day to day? Answer being, kinda, but not really. Let me explain. So, yes, we use sir and ma'am, and yes, it can come off well depending on the context, but for the most part, people do not use it day to day. So context, you could say sir and ma'am. If you're getting an order from someone, for example, your parents, if it's your parents, your grandparents, whatever, and they tell you to do something, say you live under you have your tenant, and your landlord tells you, hey, I need you to get this rent by whatever. I mean, not necessarily would you have to be like, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, but a lot of times that's polite. So, for example, if you're getting an order from someone, primarily like parents or something, then yeah, that is polite to say sir or ma'am. At the same time, a lot of people, once again, in a lot of contexts, they just don't care. Like, even my boss, right? Like a lot of times your boss, you could say sir or ma'am whenever they tell you to do something, but a lot of times people don't, and a lot of times the person's not really going to care. They'd be like, your boss's name is John, and he tells you to do something, you'd be like, yes, John, or sure thing, dude, or I got you. Really, they're not going to care. It's just not that big of a deal. The more corporate of the setting, the higher up it gets, for sure, and the more likely you are to use something like that, especially professional environments as you go higher. For the most part, most casual environments or casual jobs, or even just day to day, you're not going to be using the word sir and ma'am. Now, there are a few points where you will use it. For example, super professional environment. So if your job is a super professional job, or you're constantly in high-level professional environments, then you'll be using sir and ma'am a lot. That is a proper time to use it. People in the military will use that a lot, sir and ma'am. That's customary. Customer service, that's the last thing. If you're in customer service or you're interacting with someone in customer service, they'll say sir and ma'am sometimes, so you can say it. Now, a lot of the times people just be like, hey, what do you want? What can I get for you? But sometimes, people will be, depending on the kind of customer service, like if it's super casual, like a McDonald's or something, people may not use it that much. But if it's like something more formal, like, I don't know, someone greeting you at a door, at a hotel, that kind of thing, that's when you might hear sir or ma'am. At restaurants, you're going to hear sir or ma'am a lot, especially nice restaurants, just because it's a professional environment, it's super formal, and that's just the context that people do it. It's supposed to be good customer service. However, most of the times you're not going to use it, and you're not going to hear it. Those are those three things to know to avoid being rude in America, and what to say and what not to say. Obviously, this is a big point of this channel, something that we like to impress upon people. We just want to make sure that when people come, obviously you just want to make sure you have all the facts. So when you come to America or you go to an English-speaking country, like what is generally accepted, and what to say, what not to say to come off whatever way you were intending to come off. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And like always, peace. We'll see you in the next time.